Hello and welcome, I'm Chris and this is the Hair Tutorial channel, and on this week's video we'll be talking skin tests. When you should do them, why you should do them, how you should do them, and how often you should do them. Now don't forget, if you're new to the channel, to like, subscribe and hit the notification button for weekly videos on everything hair. So when I decided to do this video, I thought this is going to be a piece of cake. All I have to do is jump on Google, type in what I want, and I'm going to find the information. I mean, let's be honest, Google is the largest search engine in the world, and the stuff that I can find out on Google about businesses and people is unbelievable. How hard can it be? Well, it's hard. Now a quick disclaimer, obviously I do not work for any product companies, I'm not sponsored by any product companies, I am not a doctor, and I am certainly not a chemist. What I found out on my own fruition, is merely my opinion. You should always check with your local authority, your manufacturer, and of course your insurance company. So let's start by looking at the basics. Why do we skin test? Well, I think every hairdresser knows you skin test to see if there are allergies. But let's take a very quick look at why we do this and the components of colour. So hair colour is basically made up of chemicals called intermediates. Now, as far as I know, there are 274 intermediates. These intermediates are used by all the colour companies in the world to make their hair colour. Different combinations and different mixtures make different colour. Now, out of those 274 intermediates, a colour company will use a certain amount of them. Now, for instance, the colour company that I use 13 of these 274 intermediates to make all of their colours. However, that doesn't mean they're the same 13 intermediates as another colour company. So it makes absolute perfect sense that when you change from one colour company to another colour company, you're going to do a skin test to see if there are any reactions with different intermediates used by the new colour company. I think this is standard procedure and I don't know anybody that doesn't follow this. However, the issue then comes when you have a regular client base and when you're using a regular colour brand. So I jumped on Google and I went on to find out skin test policies of various colour companies. Now, it's quite simple to find their skin test procedure, whether you do it for 24 or 48 hours before, behind the ear or on the arm, whether you mix it with developer or don't mix it with developer. However, it becomes a little bit more complicated when you want to find out how often you should skin test, what colour you should skin test, and do you need to skin test every time. So for instance, in the range that I use, as I said, there are 13 intermediates used that make all of their colours. However, no one colour will contain all 13 intermediates. They do, however, have a colour that contains 9 of the 13 intermediates. Therefore, it makes sense that if you don't know what colour you're going to use this particular colour. However, that still leaves 4 intermediates that you're not testing for, and there is a small chance that your client could be allergic to those 4. People instantly assume that a dark colour is going to be the best to skin test with. However, this isn't necessarily the case, as dark colours, yes, they're dark, but they don't necessarily contain a lot of the intermediates that you need to skin test for. So in an ideal world, in an ideal situation, you're going to be skin testing with the colour that you know your client is going to have. Therefore, if you know they're going to have that colour, you'll see if there's a reaction to it. Now, the complication really seems to come, and there seems to be a lot of debate on the internet, on different chat rooms, about how often you need to skin test. So after struggling to find out with a lot of companies what exactly the colour I should use and how often I should do it, I saw that some of them do things called colour passports. And these colour passports, whether they're for new or existing clients, you can use during your consultation. Follow a list of questions like a consultation question. If they answer yes to any of the questions, then you would be recommended either to not proceed with the service or to do a skin test. It then generally advises you at the end, even if they've answered no, to do a skin test with the colour you're going to use. To wait 24 to 48 hours to see if there's a reaction, then proceed if there is no reaction with your colouring service. Then generally these colour passports state that you're okay as long as your client comes back in and answers no again to all of the questions to proceed with their colour without having to skin test. However, on the majority of these, in very small print, it does say that you can only proceed if they're having the same colour as they had the last time. So if they wanted to change their base colour, or even if they were going on the same base but wanted to have a different tonal colour, you would need to re-skin test. So let's say, for instance, your client has answered no to all the questions and they've been having an 8.0 or an 8N, depending on the brand you use, for months and months, but they come in on one occasion and decide they'd like a little bit of gold in their hair. So you put some gold in. There is, however slim a chance it is, 1 in millions, that they could be allergic to the intermediates in that gold and have a reaction. So this seems to be something that there's a lot of debate on. A lot of people are saying that, well, that means that if my client's coming in and they chop and change their colour regularly, I have to regularly skin test them for the new colour that they're going to have, and that's just impossible. So what about these skin test patches? Again, I've seen a lot of debate over the skin test patches, and I am no expert on these. However, I have done a little bit of research, and from what I can gather, these skin test patches contain just 9 or 10 of the most commonly found intermediates, usually the ones that are most commonly found in colours or the ones that are most commonly found to cause reactions. If you were to use one of these skin test patches and then your client had an allergic reaction to the colour, what would you do? Well, if you called the manufacturer, the chances are they'll go, well, you didn't skin test following our guidelines. So the next thing you do is call your insurance company. So this is where the guidelines really do begin to get very confusing, and I can understand why there is so much chat about this. Each colour company seems to have their own set of rules. The National Hair Federation also has guidelines. So who should you be listening to? Well, really, again, I'm as confused as every other hairdresser. However, if something went wrong in the salon with a colour, yes, I would call the colour company. They would obviously go, did I follow the manufacturer's instructions? If my answer was no, they would probably wash their hands of me. If their answer was yes, they would probably go, oh, that's a little bit strange. You need to contact your insurance company. And it will be your insurance company that's going to be dealing with you and protecting you against any liable. So should it be our insurance companies that we're going to and getting written confirmation of what exactly they will accept? I find it very strange that obviously it can be very difficult to do skin testing, and clients, you know, understand if you're moving maybe from one brand to a new brand, or maybe if you're coming back after a prolonged period of being away from the salon, or if there has been any sort of medical change to your circumstances. But to say to them that they have to come in on a regular basis to have skin tests, even though it's for their protection, they're going to go, oh, I'll sign a waiver, or no, it'll be all right. But let's be honest, if the hits the fan, are they going to be all right? Probably not. And we're the ones that would face the backlash on this. Now, it's interesting that if you go into a supermarket and pick up one of their box dyes and read the instructions, it does clearly state that you have to do a skin test, that it has to be every time. Now, of course, this is then putting the onus of the manufacturer onto the person that buys it. If anything was to go wrong, the manufacturer would simply say, did you do a skin test? If the answer was no, they'd go, well, there's your problem. If the answer was yes, they'd go, well, you can't have done a skin test because you would have seen a reaction. It's sort of a get out clause. So why don't manufacturers make a skin test tube? Well, again, there's a number of reasons for this. Firstly, they wouldn't actually sell that many. You think how much out of a tube you use for a skin test. You'd probably buy one tube and it would last you 6 to 8 months. The other thing is to put all of the intermediates into one tube in a quantity that would be sufficient to show a reaction could actually cause a reaction. So therefore, it's actually not that good an idea. Now, I'm sure there's lots of people jumping into the comments or itching to get into the comments to say, well, my manufacturer says this. So I'm going to ask you a massive favor, because I've spent over a week really trying to find this. I've seen a lot of hearsay of, oh, the distributors said this, the sales guys said this, the technician has said this. However, I can't find any solid information on a website where it is actually clearly written by the manufacturer that you can do a skin test once every 6 months with a certain color. So please help us out. If anybody here has a direct link to a manufacturer where it clearly states how often you have to skin test, with what color you have to skin test, and if you're changing your base color or your tonal color, do you have to skin test? then please put the link in the description below, as this would massively help everybody out. And once again, I don't see this as just one random manufacturer's issue. It does seem to be right across the board, and it is a real grey area. Even the National Hair Federation's website in some ways contradicts some of the manufacturing instructions, and you would think that they would be aligning with all manufacturers, although that would be very difficult, and the government to make sure that this issue moving forward is resolved. So please, in the comments below, leave any useful direct links to manufacturers' instructions, and don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification button for more videos. And why not join me on my Facebook page, Hair Tutorials, to carry on this discussion.